Next Level Broadband grant program. Indiana's Director for Broadband Opportunities explains how it can help bridge the digital divide in rural areas statewide. Plus, in less than 2 years, Indy-based Canvas has transformed the way companies recruit top talent by using the industry's first text-based interviewing platform. CEO Amon Brower is here to discuss the acquisition and the potential for new jobs. And over nearly 6 decades, Indianapolis-based construction company Shield Sexton has grown to almost 400 employees, also consistently ranked among the nation's top construction firms. Leadership here to talk about a transition at the top. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
For top of show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. A Purdue University study found that Indiana could gain billions of dollars in economic benefit over 20 years with full deployment of broadband into rural areas where access is now sorely lacking. Governor Eric Holcomb's Next Level Broadband initiative will dedicate $100 million to bring broadband service to the entire state. Indiana Director of Broadband Opportunities Scott Rudd is here now to explain how the program works and what it could mean for the state's economy. Scott, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Before we get into the program, to tee up this issue, and a lot of people are talking about it, but people in metro areas like Indianapolis and Fort Wayne and South Bend, Evansville, don't really think about this. There's internet broadband access there, but in many rural areas of the state, that is not the case.
That's true, and in my extensive travels here in the first 6 months of my position, it's always interesting to travel to these places with little access, and I really know I'm in the right spot or in the hot spot when I can't get access to maybe cell phone coverage or internet coverage to communicate with the outside world. Folks from children to seniors to businesses to governments, quite frankly, are struggling with this issue.
Well, when you talk about that, you talk about cell service, but then you talk about business development and businesses trying to grow. Families, kids doing homework, that kind of thing. I know there was a story, the governor has told it several times, the Starbucks in Martinsville and how busy that can be during the week.
Yeah, you know, I live next to a public library, and so every day when I come to work, I see folks, or in the evenings when I get home, I see folks parked there in their cars with the lights on their phones and on their laptops, children and adults, and they're utilizing a technology they don't have access to at home, and that might be due to the lack of affordability for that individual. All
right, let's talk about this pretty ambitious program, $100 million targeted to get broadband access to a larger swath around the state. How's the program going to work?
So the program will be administered by NDOT and OKRA, carried out by OKRA, and will go to providers or any folks who would like to deploy broadband to some of these unserved areas. And unserved is a definition of an area that does not have 10:1 speed. So that's kind of a very limited speed, and if a community member or business doesn't have access to that, they're going to struggle to operate in a day-to-day fashion.
What are you seeing around the state? Because this is a program, I think, that takes collaborations, the providers, but also communities around the state are beginning to engage in this.
You know, we are seeing extensive engagement at the community level in ways that we don't see typically, with community members and businesses and educators and healthcare folks and seniors and on and on and on, coming together in a way to drive this issue and drive investment to their individual community, because at the end of the day, Gary, this is a local economic development issue that affects local prosperity.
And you have witnessed this firsthand. You were involved in a broadband deployment, the broadband situation in Brown County.
That's right. Yeah, we were very fortunate to engage numerous providers, which is really what it's going to take to solve this problem in some of these communities, in making a major investment of over $20 million in fiber to the home. So we're very fortunate, and we worked very hard to accomplish that.
A couple examples as we wrap up. I know you've identified real key challenged areas: Benton County in west central Indiana, Crawford County down south. I guess it's areas where there's just not much population, right?
You know, Gary, the low density is really really the challenge here, and you know, 6 folks per mile is something that is very difficult to attain, and so the Next Level Connections program is aimed at shining a light on those areas of darkness and really bringing resources there.
And this is, we wrap $100 million, but it's just the beginning. This is phase 1 of what will likely be a longer-term program.
That's right. Thanks to the leadership, the administration, the legislature, this will be the first phase of that rollout, and look forward to seeing that happen.
Major economic development issue around the state, access to high-speed broadband internet access. Scott Rudd, the Indiana Director of Broadband Opportunities. Thanks, as always. We'll be following the story.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, Indianapolis International Airport says a record more than 9.4 million passengers flew out of the airport in 2018, topping the previous year total by more than 620,000. Airport officials say the record numbers fueled by international passenger traffic that soared 77%. Also, West Coast flights that jumped by 45%. Nonstop service to Paris began in 2018, and Airport Executive Director Mario Rodriguez says that flight has been performing well. Still ahead, the Senate has carried many of the controversial issues so far at the 2019 Indiana General Assembly. As we go inside the State House, Indiana Chamber of Commerce President Kevin Brinegar will join us with a look at where the major issues stand. But first, Indy-based Canvas has clients ranging from startups to the Fortune 500 in Silicon Valley, the coasts, and France, and is now part of an industry-changing acquisition. CEO Amon Brower is here to explain how the deal could mean more growth and jobs in Indiana. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, Indianapolis-based Canvas, the country's first enterprise-grade text-based interviewing platform, has been acquired by Silicon Valley-based JobVite, an industry leader in recruiting software. Canvas CEO Amon Brower is here now to explain how that deal could help the company grow its employment footprint in Indy and beyond. And Amon, as always, welcome to the program. Congratulations on the deal.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here, Gary.
I mentioned text-based platform. Give us the model, really, what Canvas is all about.
Yeah, so we help enterprise clients, mid-market clients connect with this next generation of talent via text message as kind of our first entry point platform. It's really had a profound impact on kind of closing that talent gap for hundreds of companies across the country.
Seems like it was yesterday we had you on the show talking about the launch of Canvas, 17 months ago or so, I think. Yeah. So that was a pretty quick turnaround that led to this acquisition by JobVite, a high-profile company from the West Coast. Talk about the acquisition and how it came about.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have just a really highly powered team with some apparatus veterans and some OR fellows mixed in, and we just did a tremendous job of making an impact in the HR tech marketplace in a short amount of time. That led to great partnerships with companies like JobVite and others, and as you know, sometimes those partnerships lead to even bigger things. Yeah. And so when this roll-up concept was floated by us, as far as combining these companies with JobVite to go make a big impact in the HR tech marketplace, it was a very attractive opportunity for us.
So what's this going to mean for Canvas now? Because you talked at the time of the acquisition about the fact this is something that can lead or will lead to growth, including additional jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about the kind of the strategy, so Canvas will continue to grow its footprint in Indianapolis, as well as just the broader kind of new companies. So we expect, for example, by the end of the year, we should have greater than 50 folks underneath the combined umbrella, really taking advantage of the SaaS talent pool and the college talent pool in Central Indiana.
Talk about the kinds of jobs, the kind of people that you're going to look to hire.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we've got a great, amazing software business that we want to go and run with innovative talent. So we're looking at everything from sales and marketing and engineering and software development and customer success. So really that entirety of that SaaS playbook is going to be meaningful to our future here.
Acquisition says a lot about Canvas. Also, does it say anything about the SaaS marketplace here in Indianapolis, Central Indiana, this region, as a hotbed for those kinds of companies?
I think it really, really does. And I think not just Canvas, but a number of other companies that are whether through acquisition or through partnership. You look, at the end of the day, I think it's no secret anymore that places like Indianapolis have a lot of innovation going for them, and you're going to find both coastal capital as well as coastal companies that are looking to partner with innovative companies in Indianapolis and elsewhere. All
right, growth opportunities, a big acquisition at Canvas. Amon Brower is the CEO of the company. Amon, thanks as always for being here. We'll be following your story.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King. Indianapolis-based tech networking platform PowderKeg has closed on its first capital raise. The organization says it raised about $900,000 in a round led by indie-based Elevate Ventures and involving Stout Street Capital and former Salesforce Marketing Cloud CEO Scott McCorkle. PowderKeg says the funding will boost access for its more than 10,000 members to tech companies, products, and industry leaders. Chicago-based Active Campaign has announced plans to expand in Indianapolis and add more than 200 jobs. The sales and marketing automation platform says it will invest about $10 million in its Indy operations. It also has offices in Sydney, and its annual recurring revenue, the company says, has grown more than 700% over the last 3 years, topping $60 million. And Carmel-based GetLNet Consulting Services is touting growth in 2018. The IT managed service firm says it added about 26 jobs last year, expects to add 20 more by the end of this year. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Coming up next, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce continuing its legislative effort aimed at improving Hoosier health. That and a hate crimes bill are just two of the key issues Chamber President Kevin Brenninger is focused on. He's here next with a legislative outlook. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Pacers. Well, DePaul University has announced plans for a restructuring on the Greencastle campus. President Mark McCoy says a review shows the number of employees at the school is at a level that can't be sustained. That restructuring includes the elimination of more than 70 positions. Deaconess Clinic broke ground this week on its new downtown Evansville clinic. The facility will be on the Stone Family Center for Health Sciences campus and is expected to be complete in the spring of next year. The Angola Common Council has approved an agreement to pay $40,000 to Indianapolis headquartered HWC Engineering for an update to the city's comprehensive plan. That update intended to consolidate recent planning efforts into one cohesive vision for the city. And the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors has named Kristen Craig the organization's new president. Craig will be the first woman to lead the chamber in the organization's 106-year history. Well, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, among a number of business organizations and companies supporting passage of a comprehensive hate crimes bill at the Indiana State House. There are several other issues the chamber is watching as well, and President Kevin Brenninger is here with a look at some of those key issues. Kevin, is always welcome.
Gary, thank you. Good to visit with you.
We'll get right to that hot button issue of the hate crimes bill. A flurry of activity a week ago or so. Things changed in a 24-hour period, came out of committee with a vote, or it came out of the Senate with an amendment that really watered down the bill.
Yes, it did. It was a good bill with a comprehensive language that would include folks of all categories, as well as gave examples of lists of the traditional groups that have been subject to hate crimes activity. That came out of committee. They went into caucus the next day prior to the second reading amendment phase, and decided the votes just weren't there to pass the bill in that form, so they passed an amendment that essentially gutted the bill down to just 2 words and said judges can consider bias. Very broad, very vague, probably not likely to be used, and won't get us off of the list of 5 states that don't have a hate crime law. So we've still got a lot of work to do now that the bill goes to the House side. The good news is we do have a bill alive, and the governor has already weighed in more strongly and more heavily even than he did in the first half of the session. And the chamber and our various allies who think this bill is critically important are going to do likewise.
Will this be, when you blow the smoke away on the governor to really make it happen, to really get in, lean in and take an active role in this?
Well, it won't rely just on the governor, but clearly that will be an important component to our success. And I think convincing rank and file legislators that this really is important, because our businesses are in a almost hand-to-hand combat fight for talent from companies around the country and around the world, and we need to remove any and all barriers like not having a hate crimes law from the checklist of things that businesses and individuals consider.
I know you're in the process of connecting with companies around the state of Indiana. Moving on, you've had a big focus on health, raising the legal smoking age to 21, a $2 per pack tax increase on cigarettes, taxing on some of the products in vaping, right? Where does all that stand?
Well, those are the three components of our anti-smoking agenda. The tax on the e-cigarette products, which are not previously taxed, has passed the House. The raising the legal age passed out of committee and then was held in the Tax and Appropriations Committee. We think that that'll be added to the vaping tax bill, and we'll get there before the end of the session. And then the $2 cigarette tax, which will help reduce smoking rates. If it passes, it'll be in the very end of the session as part of the budget and could be a component to help provide the money to raise teacher salaries, cover DCS funding, and substance abuse counselors.
Only have 20 seconds, but some tax issues you feel are going in a positive direction. The venture capital tax credit, the taxation on data centers.
And on data centers, those bills have both passed and look very strong, as well as a good workforce development bill that ties to the governor's cabinet work, and some funding for water infrastructure, which is a key component that we're looking forward to in the future.
All right, Kevin Brendiger, Indiana Chamber of Commerce, as always, we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Also making news around Indiana, the Elkhart City Council has approved a loan for a key economic development project. That loan supports a $34 million mixed-use neighborhood center, which involves renovation of the existing Easy Shopping Center South. Developer Great Lakes Capital has proposed to build a new Martin supermarket and also 154 residential units. Coming up, nearly 60 years ago, Shield Sexton started as a small group focused on residential and apartment construction. Today, the company has roughly 400 employees and 2 regional offices. We will talk with company leadership. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, Indianapolis-based construction company Shield Sexton was founded in 1962 and has grown to nearly 400 employees, with offices in both Indianapolis and Charlotte, and is 100% employee-owned through an employee stock ownership program. There is news of a leadership change at the company. Kevin Hunt has been promoted to president, and longtime executive Mike Diltz remains as CEO and chairman of the board, and both are here now to talk about the transition and also the construction business. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Mike, start with you. Just in terms of the company, as I mentioned, the early 60s, 1962, small construction company that was formed that has really grown nicely over the years.
Yeah, thanks. Like most construction companies, you get a couple project managers got together and they want to go start building on their own. And they did that, and it limped along for a long time, and they did a great job getting us out of the gates in Indianapolis. And that was Dick Shield and Tim Sexton, and then we slowly grew. Another project manager was added, and then Andy Shield graduated from IU and joined it. So they have just kept moving along, and then we got really lucky and landed some great clients like Marsh and at that time Biodynamics and a few of those, and just really grew a great Central Indiana company.
I know a big part of your focus now is continue that transition and remaining independent and strong. Part of that that ESOP and the now 100% employee-owned company.
Right. About 25 years ago, we started writing 5-year plans, and we made it a mantra that we were going to perpetuate Shield Sexton. So that just forces you to start making long-term decisions. Ownership transition is one of those. Death, taxes, and transition. You have to face them, or someone else does. And we did not want an event or someone else deciding our future. So that then cascades through your organization into management transitions and all of those. So ESOP is where we landed 5 years ago. We went from 2 owners to 4 owners to 7 owners to 14 owners, and then we moved to an ESOP, and we really think that sets us up for the next 50.
Mike, you're going to remain as CEO and chairman of the company. Kevin, moving into the president's role. As you look at the opportunity for growth for the company, your vision?
I think that as we continue to grow, we have 7 different business units, and we're looking at continuing to grow each one of those business units. And we continue to grow into different market sectors. We do a lot of work for the public and private universities, from Butler to IU to Purdue to Ball State. But we're also doing work like the car headquarters for Pure Development up on Carmel. And we're also doing a couple other projects. So we continue to look for those marquee projects and look for those opportunities to grow in each one of those market sectors that we serve.
In many industries, I assume construction may have at least some of this, is that consolidation and those types of things, and companies getting bigger through acquisitions and mergers, but you want to remain an independent company and strong going forward.
Yeah, and I think, as Mike said, that's a big part of why we decided to become an ESOP, because we want to stay in Indianapolis, we want to stay centrally located, we want to serve our community and the business community that we serve. And so doing that, by perpetuating the company, by becoming an ESOP, says we're staying here, we're going to have incremental growth, we're going to remain steady and active in the community, and I think that's important.
Might give you the last word here, about 30 seconds to go, but as you look at the construction landscape out there through 2019 into next year, how's it looking?
It's looking good. We do work coast to coast, but primarily here in Indiana. And we watch the waves on the coast, and they come in here and they're a little bit smaller, but Indiana's really strong in every business sector we're in right now. So,
Mike Diltz and Kevin Hunt, Sheil Sexton, transition at the top. Thanks for being here. Congratulations on the success. We'll talk to you both soon.
All right, Gary. Thank you very much.
Well, coming up, Indiana, unfortunately, ranks among the top 5 states for opioid use and dependency, struggling to find enough behavioral health professionals to help treat patients. In the business of health this week, a new program could help train those to battle Indiana's opioid epidemic. Plus, the Indiana University Public Policy Institute has created a new research center that focuses on inclusion and social policy. In our Eye on Education segment, the center's new director explains the mission and how it will connect with issues like education, poverty, and housing.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Well, big news this week at RollsRoyce in Indianapolis as the company announced it wants to assemble engines for the U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber. That is, if it can secure the contract that would bring more than 150 jobs, high-paying jobs, to Indianapolis. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has details.
With a reputation as the workhorse of the United States Air Force, the iconic B-52 bomber has been in active service since the 1950s, from the Cold War to Vietnam to Operation Iraqi Freedom. And given the aircraft's history of success, the U.S. Air Force intends to keep the B-52 flying for another several decades. But in order to make that happen, it needs new modern engines. And Rolls-Royce is already producing one engine that could hit the mark.
Rolls-Royce North America CEO Tom Bell says the F-130 engine made right here in Indianapolis is exactly what the U.S. Air Force needs for its B-52 bomber fleet.
A reliable commercial engine that has flown around the world over 22 million flight hours. It is extremely reliable, proven, efficient, and modern. It's everything the U.S. Air Force needs for the B-52 long into the next decades. Digitally engineered right here in Indianapolis, featuring American parts, an American supply chain, and an American assembly and test facility. This program is huge. It'll be over 650 F-130s that we build here.
John Kaznerek, Vice President of Military Strategic Systems at Rolls-Royce, seems to think Indy's chances of landing the B-52 program are promising.
Oh, I'm very optimistic. We have an engine that is combat proven, highly reliable, and the perfect fit for the B-52. Rolls-Royce has already invested over $500 million in this factory for this size class of engine.
President of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, Elaine Beadle, says the state is fully behind Rolls-Royce in its effort to secure the B-52 contract that would create over 150 Hoosier jobs.
This is an exciting opportunity for Rolls-Royce and for the state of Indiana. Trust me, we're here with you all the way. It has the potential to bring new products, new investment, and most importantly, new jobs to our capital city.
The U.S. Air Force is expected to announce its selection on who will run its B-52 re-engineering program sometime next year. So perhaps Bell's parting words this week said it best.
Now all we got to do is go win it.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
Well, Hoosiers in the grip of substance use disorder, especially related to opioids, are facing a shortage of professionals they can turn to for help. But a new program is focused on producing more licensed clinical social workers specially trained to battle Indiana's opioid epidemic. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta is here now with more. Kylie.
Thank you very much, Gary. Employer demand for behavioral health professionals to help treat Hoosiers has reached a fever pitch, but Indiana falls 7,000 workers short of the need. It's a gap the state's workforce development initiative, Ascend Indiana, aims to bridge with the newly formed Community Behavioral Health Academy. It's a collaboration among Community Health Network, the IU School of Social Work at IUPUI, and the University of Indianapolis. Ascend President and Chief Executive Officer Jason Kloth joins me now, along with Community Behavioral Health Vice President George Hurd. Thank you both for coming to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Jason, let's start with you. Dual licensing is what this academy is focusing on, and those two licenses are clinical social workers and clinical addiction counselors. Why is the academy focusing on those two specific roles?
Sure. Well, as you said, the demand for licensed clinical social workers and addictions counselors has skyrocketed in the past few years. And that is really a function of the opioid epidemic that we're seeing statewide. Indiana is currently 15th in the nation in terms of the number of overdoses occurring as a result of opioids on an annual basis. But the supply of workers just has not kept pace, particularly in the behavioral health field, as a function of the level of educational attainment required. And so the Community Behavioral Health Academy aims to address that by bringing the parties together to produce nearly 30 of these professionals on an annual basis, enabling community to better meet that need.
George, let's talk about the curriculum with you. The partners all work together to develop this curriculum, and it's tailor-made for these workers in particular and for this problem in Indiana.
Sure, the curriculum is highly important. Before the academy, people would have to take extra classes or incur extra cost for classes because the curriculum wasn't designed to be able to do both mental health and addictions. But through great partnerships with UND and IUPUI, they were able to change their curriculum so students can now go through the coursework and come out both eligible for both their licensed clinical social work degree and their LCAC for their addictions counseling. Before this, they would have to take extra coursework, so it's probably invaluable to the students to be able to do this both cost effectively and then also in terms of their time as a student to be able to get this done.
Quicker. We often hear how rural areas are hardest hit by the opioid epidemic. So will this academy be able to reach into those communities and impact those communities at all?
Yeah, so I would just say, I mean, we're incredibly excited to have received a grant from the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation alongside Community Health Network to take what we learned through the process of developing this academy and replicating it across the state. So in the coming months, we'll be going to communities in northern and southern Indiana to bring healthcare providers alongside higher education institutions together to see how we can take these learnings and share them with others in need.
And social work is a tough job. It's high stress, relatively low pay. So how will the academy battle those headwinds?
Sure, I think the important part about the academy again is we're able to do this without students incurring more classwork, which means lower costs. The other thing is part of this academy as Community Health Network, we're going to provide incentives to the students. We know that this isn't a career that people get into to earn lots of money. It's a helping profession. So to do that, we're offering incentives. So for students who get selected in the academy, we're offering a $5,000 incentive to get involved in the academy. And then upon licensure, if we hire them, we'll offer another $5,000. So that really should help offset the cost of their bachelor's and their master's degree educations. Hopefully that entices more students to get involved.
All right, we have just a few seconds left, but give us an update. Are students enrolling now, and when will they be in the field?
Yeah, so we have just been overwhelmed by the level of interest in this work. So we announced the launch of the Community Behavioral Health Academy just last week, and I believe more than 60 individuals have reached out to express their interest, and Community Health Network has already interviewed upwards of 10 of those individuals. So we're just very, very excited about the path forward.
That's great. Well, Jason and George, thank you both for being here. Really important topic and good training.
Thank you.
Good luck. Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, the School of Public and Environmental Affairs and the IU Public Policy Institute at IUPUI have created a new research center dedicated to researching issues that address fair and impartial outcomes related to social policy. It's called the Center for Research on Inclusion and Social Policy, or CRISP. In our Eye on Education segment this week, the new director for CRISP, Brianka Merritt, is here to tell us more about the goals of the center. And Brianka, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about this new center. First of all, how did it come about?
Sure, it came about as a natural next step for a lot of the research that we're already doing and that I do that deals with issues of social policy and equity issues, particularly in Indianapolis.
Let's talk about some of these issues, because these are very topical, relevant, many of them hot button issues. Talk about the kinds of issues you'll be researching and dealing with.
Sure, so big picture, social policy is a broad topic, and they're very interrelated. So we're touching on issues of housing, crime prevention, home ownership, as well as dealing with issues of bias and hate crimes as well.
Well, that's certainly very topical now in Indiana, as the debate at the Indiana State House is centered on creation of a bias or hate crimes law, a bill going through the State House now. As you look at the work you're doing, is this for other researchers, or is this really for the general populace and businesses, organizations, and institutions?
Absolutely the latter. So we're obviously wanting to inform the research discussion, but our primary audience includes legislators, nonprofit leaders, anyone who's really needing information to make decisions, and also to inform community residents as well.
And this is a multidisciplinary type of center, right? You really, to research one area, you're really delving into a bunch of different areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you think of issues of housing, for example, it's impossible to deal with that issue without thinking about someone having a criminal justice record, or issues of education, inability to afford a home. So there are a lot of issues that tie together very well. The
School of Public and Environmental Affairs, SPIA at IU and IUPUI Public Policy Institute, really working together, a lot of cross-collaboration in this center, I assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As you look at ultimately what this can become, in terms of its impact, is this as a center like this grows, do you see that impact it has on community growing over the years?
Sure. As you know, we're not a consulting firm, so we have responsibility for IUPUI and the larger university community to give back to the public. And so our goal is, again, not just to inform each other, but to really help inform the people who are on the ground doing the work.
Yeah, there's so many schools and entities, in particular at IUPUI. I think of the School of Philanthropy, that is a nationally, globally recognized institute. And this new center that you have here, do you view this as really an asset for the community, something that, whether you're businesses, academic institutions, legislators, whatever the case might be, can really be an asset to those folks?
Yes, and then bringing experts to the table where they're needed, right? So when we have issues of philanthropy or issues of education, we bring those experts to the table to enhance our work even more. All
right, well, it's a brand new center, CRISP for short. Brianka Merritt is the director of the Center for Research on Inclusion and Social Policy. Thanks for joining us. We'll be following the story.
Thanks again.
All right. Well, Indianapolis-based education nonprofit The Mind Trust has awarded $1 million to the John Bonner Neighborhood Centers. The gift will help fund a $36 million renovation of the P.R. Mallory building to house Purdue Polytechnic High School and Paramount Schools of Excellence's new campus, Paramount Inglewood. The Mind Trust Award supports renovations that will make the historic factory the permanent home of two of Indianapolis's top-performing charter schools. Still ahead, leadership from KSM Location Advisors will look at some of the latest economic development projects making headlines in Indiana. But first, the future stars of the NFL are here in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. As we go inside Indiana sports, Chris Gall from Visit Indy looks at the Combine's economic impact, plus his take on whether Indy can keep it here. Well, the NFL Scouting Combine is back in Indianapolis, as it's been every year since 1987. But can the city hold on to this important piece of sports business beyond the current agreement that expires after next year. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill?
Gary, thanks. Hundreds of media members and thousands upon thousands of hours of national television coverage make the Scouting Combine a prized event beyond the hotel rooms it fills for aspiring NFL players and the team personnel assembled here to gauge their draft value. And joining us today to discuss the Combine's presence for both now and beyond is Visit Indy's Senior Vice President of Marketing Communications, and my good friend Chris Gall. And Chris, welcome to the show.
Bill, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is I think because it's been here since 1987, we kind of maybe take it for granted, but this Scouting Combine, the way it was in '87, the way it is in 2019, it's a whole different animal, isn't it?
And you've covered this through your career here in Indianapolis. The epicenter of the football universe is again in Indianapolis. And it's almost surreal as you walk downtown inside the convention center and all the restaurants, the who's who of past players, current players, prospective players, the media elite, celebrities, they're all here in Indianapolis because of these college athletes who are essentially trying out for a job. And we've never, from a city perspective, taken this for granted. And to the residents in central Indiana and the state as a whole, I think there's a sense of pride that the NFL has entrusted us with this event for such a long period of time. 30 years is a long time to host an event.
And we do have home field advantage. Jeff Foster and National Scouting located in Pan Am Plaza, and he does a fantastic job of organizing and doing all the nitty-gritty detail work.
Yeah, you think about the logistics of getting more than 300 college athletes into a city, checked into their hotel room, and then through not only mental, physical, emotional, and then the physical, how fast you are, how high you can jump. That takes a lot of logistics. And these are student athletes. These are younger gentlemen. So there's a lot of logistics. It's really a year-round planning from our perspective of city and Jeff Foster and the Combine to get this done.
And Chris, as we've seen, like for the NFL draft would be the prime example, the NFL has now moved that event around, and now other NFL owners have seen what Indy has done and say, this is a pretty good piece of business. Can we get it for our city? Where do we stand?
Well, I tell you, we've been negotiating and discussing with the NFL for the last 12, 14 months, as recently as this week when they're on the ground, really advocating for this event to continue in Indianapolis, to grow in Indianapolis. We know other major cities are viciously and aggressively courting the NFL to move it because it has become such a big-time, major news, major media event. We feel there's no better city in the nation. We've communicated that over the last few months, and we feel confident that at the end of the day, we do have the best package. But that's not to say that we can't sharpen our pencil and make sure that past 2020, next year, they don't stay in Indianapolis.
One important, very important component of the Scouting Combine is the medical. And Lucas Oil was actually designed with that. And of course we have IU Health. I mean, it's a great, great part of the Scouting Combine, a service that we can offer perhaps unlike anybody else.
That's our competitive edge. You're absolutely right. 12 meeting rooms inside Lucas Oil Stadium, deliberately designed for a mini hospital for the NFL Combine. Those players come through as if it was a hospital. We designed the stadium with that in mind, with MRI machines brought in. Underneath the ground, when we built the stadium, all the way to IU Health, fiber optic cable, so that real-time imaging and medical reports can be sent from patients to doctors and back. That plus all the hotel rooms that connect via climate-controlled skywalk, you take weather and travel out of the equation, and a mini hospital inside Lucas Oil Stadium, that's our competitive edge.
If we are so fortunate to hold on to the NFL Scouting, one of the things that the public component started 3 years ago, and it's, again, growing. But fans can go down and watch the athletes work out and bench press and do all kinds of things.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, into the weekend, 2 to 5 p.m. You can go inside what used to be the RCA Dome, Lucas Oil Stadium, and watch these athletes, see how many reps they can do at the bench press. And you'll look to your right, and there'll be coaches and owners also watching and grading them. Yeah. These athletes, the Lombardi Trophy is there. When this event first came in 1987, it was closed to only athletes, coaches, scouts, and now the public can really get up close, which is unique.
Well, we should know within a few months, according to Chris, that whether Indianapolis hangs on to this. As we wrap up, Chris, okay, we got the Scouting Combine. We've had the Scouting Combine. We had a Super Bowl. We set the new standards for the Super Bowl. Okay, when's our next Super Bowl?
That's a good question. I would tell you that having the NFL elite and all the owners here in Indianapolis each year, year in, year out, gives us a competitive edge if and when we want to bid. and certainly all those media who talk about Indianapolis in a positive light.
Right.
I think that gives us a good competitive edge if and when we want to host again.
All right. Well, Chris Gall, Senior VP for Marketing and Communications, welcome back to the show. And
thank you.
Let's hold on to this great piece of business.
Thank you. Good to see you,
my friend.
Thank
Gary,
you.
back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, coming up, leadership from KSM Location Advisors are here to talk about some big economic development projects making headlines in Indiana. They're in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, economic development continues to make headlines in Indiana, from Indianapolis International Airport's record-breaking 2018 to the potential of a big contract and jobs at Rolls-Royce to an 800-room luxury-branded Hilton hotel that will change the Indy skyline. National site selection firm KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp returned to the show to weigh in on the impact of these projects on Indiana. Welcome to the program, as always. Thanks. Early in 2019, but already a number of high-profile projects are rolling. First of all, the airport, which continues to be such an economic driver for Indianapolis and Indiana. 620,000 passengers more in 2018 than the previous year. Big numbers.
This is a huge accomplishment, and I don't know if people who don't work in this space every day understand what daunting challenges have to be overcome to do that. You're working with this regulated industry, with airport authorities, with airlines. So the increase in passenger volume is huge, and I think will pay enormous dividends for new economic development projects. Yeah. One of the dings on the Indy market so often has been lack of direct flights, that type of thing. This really helps elevate our stature and make us more attractive for the types of deals we want to go after.
And when you talk about those nonstops that we didn't have hardly any 10 years ago or so, now more than 50, and to some important markets, 77% increase in international traffic. There's the Paris nonstop that launched last year, and other nonstops up and down the West Coast, so hitting some key markets. Yeah, and it's important as we're trying to attract companies here, they want to know they can get to and from other cities in one flight. And the more that we've been able to expand what those locations are, I think that helps that strategy. As you look at that, for you guys, you're in the business obviously, but to those who maybe don't fully understand the importance of nonstop flights when it comes to office development or commercial real estate development, whatever the case might be, venture capital coming from the coast, it's a real issue. Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal when we got the nonstop to San Francisco a couple of years ago because those VC folks could not get to and from Indianapolis, and so I think the more we can add to that list, I think that just helps that argument.
And related to that, I think initially a lot of companies were leaving California and they went to easy answers like Phoenix or Denver. The more we have these direct flights, the more obvious a solution we can provide. Another big economic development project potentially moving forward is the Indy 11, the big soccer stadium, and multifaceted development that Ursal Özdemir has planned. Moving ahead a bit at the State House, so there seems to be some support building for that. That's a big project. The stadium itself, if they can get a Major League franchise, but that development around it too. Yeah, I think it's noteworthy that it finally has some traction with the legislature. It's not something that's going to pass this year. It may not pass next year. I think this continues to be the start of the negotiating process. But from an economic development standpoint, if we could have a stadium like that and all of the mixed-use development around it, that could be a real driver. And interesting his approach to Ursal Özdemir, broadening the ownership group to include 6, 7, 8 additional owners from around the state, very importantly. And on the show a couple of weeks ago, he said, we view this as not an immediate, this is a long-term thing. It is, and it plays to some of our core competencies, right? We're great in the sports arena, and it's where we've been successful and will continue to be. Yeah, I want to touch on Rolls-Royce, too. We'll see. It was a big announcement this week. They're bidding on a big project to put Rolls-Royce engines into the B-52 bomber, that re-engining project from the U.S. Air Force. That would mean 150 high-paying jobs. The result, potentially, of this $600 million expansion and investment that they put into that facility. They are such a huge employer here already, and they've made a tremendous investment.
I think we want to see them parlay that, and it's great to see the city, the state, everybody getting behind that to do everything we can to win that contract.
In terms of the changing face, literally, if you will, of the city, I thought it was interesting in terms of big hotel development in downtown Indianapolis. 2 new hotels were announced last fall in the Pan Am Plaza site. One of them will be a brand new Hilton-branded hotel, the Signia, which is a luxury brand catering to convention and meeting planners. Interestingly enough, Indianapolis, Orlando, and Atlanta are the only 3 markets initially at least getting that brand.
I think those are great cities to be considered peers with. And I also think having another quality hotel for outsiders to come visit really, again, just adds to our sophistication as a location.
It'll add to the, literally physically, to the view, the skyline as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful skyline, and I think the fact that there's enough demand that they would build a hotel with that many rooms, that's a good message to the convention community.
And as Indianapolis looks to attract additional big events, those hotels very important as well. Final thing I want to touch on, because it certainly does lead into some of these big projects that Indianapolis is attracting in Indiana and will attract. Forbes out with an article on growth in the life sciences and innovation, triggering demand for so-called real estate clusters.
Yeah, I think it's been great for Indianapolis and for the state. We have so many life science assets. To be able to utilize those in a way that we can marry with our real estate strategy is great. And when you look at where Indiana ranks in the life science area, we're always in the top 10. So it's great to see Forbes giving us that kind of attention.
And the life sciences, as you mentioned, Indianapolis in particular, but the state is a hotbed. I think 850 life sciences companies statewide. 16 Tech is going to be the focal point of a lot of that here in central Indiana.
16 Tech is a great success of the city of Indianapolis's, but you know, even nationally, we're so competitive with that type of workforce, and a lot of our national clients are surprised to learn that, and maybe even some residents are, but it's a strength that we need to continue to play to in addition to tech and advanced manufacturing and others.
And having the real estate and these live work play like 16 Tech, it gets to the heart of what all this talk is, all this buzz is.
Yeah, we're trying to capitalize on that. I mean, these are the crown jewel of jobs. They're high paying, they require, you know, advanced degrees, and that you're attracting those types of employees that are going to be in that work, live, play environment.
Lots going on. We're only a couple of months into 2019. So Tim Cook and Katie Culp, KSM Location Advisors. Great perspective as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. And I'll be right back with more after this. Stay with us. Well, as we wrap up this week, a reminder to subscribe to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, a condensed version of the show, perfect for the ride to work, the airport, or perhaps that grind on the treadmill. The IIB podcast is free. Just search for Inside Indiana Business at your podcast page or follow the links on our social media pages and website. Coming up next week, CEDIA is a global leader in the $19 billion home technology industry. Recently moved into a new $14 million headquarters. CEO Tabitha O'Connor will take us inside that new space. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.